Okay, that was something. The Boston Bruins go into Toronto and they continue a trend. So it's Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Boston, which means Game 7, it's Toronto's turn, right? We'll see. We'll see if it follows in the path of what it looks like it could. Both teams have now lost 2 out of 3 at home. So we'll see if Boston can reverse a trend there. A lot of trends in this series will be looking to reverse. This was a big game, and I want to say right up front, I think Toronto played well, and I know there are going to be Leaf fans who are upset, and I understand it. I think the Leafs played well in this game, and I was really nervous that last 10 minutes. If you don't buy that, there's a live stream that I was doing at the time that will serve as proof that yeah I was nervous. Um, Now when Morgan Riley scored from Nylander and Marner, I thought okay, so Toronto's shown up. This is their game. This is it, and I did. I believed that, and this is where the part with the whole hockey guy versus the hockey fan part comes in. Um, as a hockey fan, as a Bruins fan, of course I'm wanting Boston to win a game. Um, as the whole THG thing and with this channel, I think it's a fascinating narrative should Toronto move on and play Columbus. I think that matchup is really really interesting. And so for that reason, I'm as much as a person can, I divorce the emotion from it. And I know sometimes it comes across as well he's leaning towards the team he's not cheering for. I get why people say that. Yet in this game, Boston needed a big game, and they kind of got it. First, it's Marchand from Bergeron on the power play. That ties it up. And then before the end of the first period, Torrey Krug from Pasternak and Marchand. And it felt to me like the Marchand goal was a bit of a change in the momentum of the game. The Krug one really, really seemed to make that huge difference. Now, it's worthy of note that Freddie Anderson robs Patrice Bergeron as well. Freddie Anderson had another very, very good game. And no matter what comes out of this series, I hope that the narrative that Freddie Anderson can't win in the playoffs has been annihilated by this series. Um, Sometimes it's a team thing, sometimes it's a goalie thing, and in this case, I'm telling you, Freddie is not the problem in Toronto. So it's 2-1 Boston after one. Second period, and this was when we had the live stream going. Jake DeBrusk scores from Krejci and Pasternak, and I said Louis when he scored, and then I went, nah, it's Jake. Louis was good, not a really good goal scorer though. So Jake DeBrusk finally gets his first of the playoffs from Krejci and Pasternak, which led to some upset-sounding fans. He is still public enemy number one in Toronto, as far as I can tell. Although Marchand likely fighting for that title. The shots were 14-6 Boston in the first, 16-9 Boston in the second. So on the one hand, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so Boston's had a control over the puck for the most part, but it's a 2-goal lead. And if we've learned anything in these playoffs, it's a 2-goal lead. It's kind of like not having one. Now, in the third period, Toronto starts pushing back. And, when you've got that crowd, and I have to say, for Toronto fans, I think that's the loudest I've heard Toronto fans in an arena. I think there were times where the announcers couldn't hear themselves think. I imagine players couldn't have heard themselves think. It was really, really loud. And one thing that, I look at now with all of this, and again, with the channel growing to where it has, when I see a game like this, I do pay attention to just how many fans and how excited and passionate they are. And when Austin Matthews scores from Gardner and Dermott to make it 3-2, that play just exploded. And Austin Matthews, again, much like Freddie Anderson, I really hope the whole storyline of Austin Matthews doesn't come up big in big games. I hope that's been annihilated as well. Of course, this means that because Tavares isn't on the board and he's been a minus in the series, people will say, well, it's on Tavares. Not really. But the fact it's not on Austin Matthews, that's a benefit to him. And really, honestly, this game was a white knuckler. Toronto gets a lot of attention in the third period around the Boston net, just not a ton of shots. A lot of passes. I think, maybe they should have taken more shots. Boston was caught running around in their own zone a lot in that third period, and yet they didn't really pay the price for it. And I was pretty darn sure they were going to. Rask was solid. His positioning was good. The overall defense seemed to be boxing out pretty well. But Toronto has a lot of offensive weapons, and it really felt like this was going to end up going to overtime. But then they pull the goalie, which made me go, okay, maybe this is the shot. And then Marchand gets the goal that kind of ends it. It's Brad Marchand from Chara and McAvoy, and that makes it 4-2. The final shots in that third period are 11-9 in favor of Boston. I really shouldn't have to tell people I don't have hockey powers. I don't. They're not a thing. I always wear the jersey of the team that won the game that day. I don't have any hockey powers from before that either. For me, Anderson, 37 saves on 40 shots, played fantastic. Again, Austin Matthews, I thought, had a really solid game as well. Tuukka Rask, 22 saves on 24 shots. I was very impressed with Marchand in this game. I was not happy with Marchand at points in this series with what I thought was a lot of cherry picking and going for really pretty plays maybe ahead of the puck. So, having it all seemingly planned out before he gets a chance to do it. This game felt more like the hard-nosed Marchand. And really, honestly, this was a perfect road game by Boston. And this is after Toronto in Game 5 went out and played a perfect road game in Boston. So now it's up to Toronto to replicate that in Game 7. What works in Toronto's favor is they shouldn't be intimidated going into Boston for Game 7. They've been here. They shouldn't be intimidated playing against a Bruins team they've already proven 3 times out of 6 they can beat. For Boston, they are a veteran team. They're a darn good team. They've proved it. For all of the talk about Boston's too slow, Boston's this and that, I did think this game was too wide open in the third period. I did think that Boston could have slowed the game down at least a bit, and they weren't, which favors Toronto. But they're not as old and slow as some seem to want them to be, or think that they are. And tonight was a good game for them. DeBrusk almost had himself an empty netter to go with that. But we'll see. So the narrative is that if Toronto's going to get into the second round, they're going to have to use the 7th game to do it. For Nazem Kadri, if he's going to play this playoffs, he has at least one more game before he gets there. But impressed by Boston's effort in this game. Backs against the wall. They knew what they were dealing with Toronto. Marchand said all the right things after the game in an interview about how Toronto plays with their backs against the wall, and also about themselves and how they played knowing they had to win this game. Now it's a must-win in Game 7 for both teams. So we'll see how things turn out. Rask with 22 saves on 24 shots. Anderson's 37 on 40 is very impressive. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing right through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, we've got one more game tonight, which is Vegas and San Jose, and we'll see how that turns out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.